Oh, I think a lot of people are always thinking that you have a multi-million dollar company, you must be a millionaire. And I think a lot of people need to realize that you're the last person in line to get paid. Even when you're making millions of dollars at the company, if it's losing money, you're the first person to feel that loss and you're the last person to feel the profit.
Good morning, Scale On Outs. This is Ivan Galvez, your host, and this is your podcast, Start, Scale, Exit, where SaaS leaders and founders share with us successes, stories, and strategies that you can use every single day to make your life better and your businesses to scale up. So today, in today's episode, guys, it's going to be very, very interesting. So I'm going to suggest you stay until the very end because we have a lot of topics we're going to cover today. And we have a very fun entrepreneur today. He is someone who sees the world differently, like most of us do. Like most of us think in the world in a certain way. He's used to think about it backwards. He built a platform upon this, so that companies can better use their products and actually recycle their products. Today we have with us Justin Andrews, who's the founder of REUZEit. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, Justin, before we get started, okay, we're gonna play a little game. All right. So I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. All right. And in those 5 seconds, so imagine something is happening, a meteorite is coming to the Earth, and you have 5 seconds to take something around the room, something that is around the room. You're gonna go to the moon, you're gonna exit the planet, you're gonna be able to save only one thing. So I'm gonna give you 5 seconds so you can find something in the room and you can tell us what are you gonna save. So it's 5, 4, there you go. So what is it?
It's a hard drive full of all the photos and family memories of everything that I can, that we have over the years. Traveling and my children and all that stuff. I keep a separate hard drive of those photos just in case,
Beautiful.
everything gets disconnected. I also have that ready to go.
In case you need to flee to the moon.
Yeah, I guess with no computer, it's not going to do much good, I guess.
Anyway, you'll find a way to decipher it later. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining us today. It is a true pleasure having you. So, let's start talking about, one of the things that I liked a lot about your story. So, in early 2000s, you lost your job, right? And your wife lost your job. Can you share with us that story? What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, we were in the 2008 crisis. My wife was in healthcare, and I was tied to the construction industry, and everything just kind of changed for us. So it was either time to drain our savings trying to save our house, or sell everything and just go start over. And so we did the sell everything and went traveling for about 10 months, almost a year. We ended up buying a camper van in Australia, and we saw the entire coast and down the middle and everywhere else. Met a lot of great friends that we still have today. And we came back to the United States, feeling kind of bad that we had seen most of Australia and hadn't even really seen most of our own country. And so we've said, let's go do our own country too, and bought another camper and did the whole thing over again. But this time we got to bring our dogs with us, which was nice. Right. But, we got to see the whole country, and they kind of did that circumnavigation. Came back, and towards the end of my trip, my dad was getting sick, and it was time to kind of settle down. And I had to figure out, how we're going to make money. Because I didn't want to go back into finance and be a cube jockey anymore. I wanted to, work for myself, and I wanted to be a brewer. So I enrolled in a brewing school, UC Davis, to become a professional brewer. And while I was waiting to go into that course, I figured that I would, make some money on the next 6 months it took to actually get into the course. And so my dad, he used to sell laboratory equipment, on the side, and he was an engineer, and he would sell the stuff they were throwing away. He'd sell it to his people in his Rolodex. And so I was like, yeah, I could probably do that. So I went door to door, and I was knocking on laboratories' doors and just asking if they had any junk. I'll buy it for cash. I bring it back to the garage and tinker with it and sell it on eBay. And I did that pretty successfully, about 2 years, put myself through school, and did it on the side. But it became something much bigger when I met a couple big clients that showed me warehouses full of equipment I could never just buy for cash. It was millions of dollars worth of stuff. And, I proposed that since they didn't know what was in there, no one knew what was in there, that I would just kind of go through the whole place, get photos and information on each and every item that's been sitting in there. And I would put together a big list and distribute that list to my contact there at Thermo Fisher. And he had distributed the list around to the company as well. And it became known as Larry's List. And all the scientists were like, "Oh my God, we have one of those. Oh, that's great. Can you have that sent to me right away?" And Larry would call me up and be like, "Hey, I know you wanted to sell this thing, but could we have it back, please?" And I'd say, "No problem, of course." And so this ended up being and evolving into a reuse program. And so now we're at the stage when we vertically integrated AI, and all the scientists around the world can just add equipment however they like. It's identified and it goes up into a centralized pool that the company can then shop like Amazon, see the features and benefits and everything else they need to know about that item, and bring it back to one of their locations and reuse it. And that's the name of the company is REUZEit. So a lot of the equipment that doesn't get reused by that organization that it came from ends up being sold to third parties, and that pays for all of the pickups that we do and the storage that we have. So we started as a very brick and mortar company, and it was heavy, but we ended up getting 6 locations around the world, and around 200,000 square feet of warehouses and 50 employees. And but what happened when AI came out was it just changed everything for us. And so we split the company into two, simplifying the old company into like just really logistics and storage and service and sales, and then taking our technology, our platform, and letting that become the leader and they're really doing the BD so that we can get more clients and scale into more partnerships with other specialized equipment repair, equipment service companies and sales companies so that we can go into hospital equipment, we can go into oil and gas industry and aerospace and do the same thing. Go to these really large companies that are just trying to grow and don't have time to pay attention to all the waste that they constantly have. They just kind of throw stuff away or they don't know where it is. They put it in a storage cabinet. Instead, we make it really easy for them just to, push the button and take a picture and then we'll go pick it up. One of our partners will pick it up. We'll get it back to one of our locations, do a refurbishment, reconditioning, and then get it back out in the market.
So
So
you're not 100% like online business, but you're still getting the equipment, still getting it to your location, adding value to the equipment, refurbishing it, or determining if it cannot be reused and then just sold for parts.
yeah,
So it's still a logistics operation there too.
yeah. That's the partnership. So that I made the old company into just to one of the clients that's using our platform. So
Right.
the company that I built is now the simplified, basic, company that gets the leads to go pick something up. They get the order to fulfill, and they get the service request to repair something. But the front of the company is the SaaS model, and that's really where we're receiving the request from our clients saying, "I want to have this item picked up. It's in South Africa somewhere." Okay, great. We'll get one of our partners over there engaged. So we have partners all over the world that are engaged in our platform, receiving pickup requests, receiving refurbishment requests, and it's their job, to just monitor and be able to get revenue opportunities. And so this is how
And some of these things that are young are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is that right?
millions. We did a little over 14 million this year. We're looking at and that's just on services and sales, storages, and all that stuff. The pieces that the partners are all doing. We're doing that activity. The platform only gets about 7 to 15% of that money to handle all these transactions. But the money that we're generating from trash is millions of dollars, and it's going to the benefit of the clients who they were used to paying to get rid of this stuff, and now they're getting paid to get rid of it, paid to even have it redistributed back to them. And we're tracking all those metrics in a very scientific kind of measurement way, where we're looking at the pounds or the kilograms of CO2 of landfill avoidance, or sorry, CO2 avoidance that they receive by reusing something instead of buying the same thing brand new. They get to
Right.
quantify all of that as their carbon offsets. So it's helping companies reach their zero
Carbon
waste
target.
goal, their carbon targets. And the companies we work with are all Fortune 500 companies. So they are very serious. Thermo Fisher specifically is very serious about getting to neutral zero waste by 2030. So I think that's what they're going for, or significantly reduced. And so it's a lot of
And even as parts, this equipments can be worth a lot of money, even if they're not usable as machines. Right? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times the equipment that's involved might have several components, like a perfectly great vacuum pump that could easily go into a new industry. So that's how I kind of like work the brewing industry into this also. There's a lot of continuous centrifuges and other pumps and tanks that come out of pharma, and they're perfectly suited to go into food production. They may
Right.
no longer be ideal for drug production because the FDA has certain regulations about how the equipment gets used or gets repurposed, but it's perfect to go into other industries. And so we do that and saving everybody money and really saving the environment from having even more waste and more production of more things that we just already have.
Absolutely. Now, I want to go deep dive a little bit into some of the things that you said, Justin. So, in the beginning, you said that once you came back from your trip, you said, I don't want to go back working for someone else. Was there a specific reason why you didn't want to work for someone else? You wanted to have your own shop?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that the company that I was working for, I was cross departments, working on everywhere from HR and marketing and sales and client services. And I knew that the company was a successful company. It got purchased, and what happened is that they just didn't need me anymore. And that's what I didn't like about it. I was like, so the more successful I am in a role, the better the company is suited to let me go and exit. So I figured that, it was no longer like the right place to be relying on someone else for my security. And I lost my house because of it. So yeah, I figured that moving forward, if I was to fail, it would at least be my fault and it wouldn't be the choice of someone else. And that's what I think the main driver was, that I had to be independent. And yeah.
So during that period of time when you decide, you lost your job, you decided to go on this trip. I mean, traveling like that is something that very few people do. That takes a lot of courage to take the decision that you took, you and your wife. And I imagine it must have been one of the biggest schools for business that where you learn a lot of things that you're implementing right now from knowing different places and traveling and so on and so forth. So what were some of the things that you learned that you took from this situation that you were later able to implement in your business?
I mean, besides going inspired to go start a brewery and become a brewer, was what I really learned when I was traveling. I wanted to go start my own brewery. And then I learned all about the engineering behind it. And I was able to use that to sell a lot of laboratory equipment. Besides that, because I didn't really plan for that, I did learn a lot about just how different our economies are, even in Australia and Europe and Thailand. All the economies are incredibly different, and what works in one place won't work in another. So, now that we have locations in the UK and the Netherlands, Singapore, and of course the United States, they all do business a lot differently. And the way that we navigate that issue is that we go with a top-down directive. So working with really large companies is our angle. And when the CEO of Thermo or Moderna says we're going to reuse equipment, it doesn't matter what economy that location is in, they're going to listen. And so by instructing our clients that they need to really have this coordinated top-down directive to use our services to capture all that waste and bring it into a reuse program, that way we can easily influence, places in the Netherlands or places in Singapore that normally wouldn't have done it. Like they were for many years, they had just been throwing things away, or they were selling it to a local broker, or whatever the case might be. We get them to change their behavior by approaching our clients in that kind of top-down methodology and that philosophy. Because there was just no way to convince small laboratories all over the world to do it this way. We had to really go after the Fortune 500, the leaders, that have the most equipment, that have the largest benefit to really make out of controlling all of their waste into a reuse program. So I
So
guess,
that is
yeah.
very interesting. How do you? I mean, you're a guy who wanted to start a brewery, started to reuse, buy equipment, and starting very small. How does Justin go from taking pictures and refurbishing in his garage to talking to the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies? How do you get to do that? It's impressive.
I mean, we got noticed, I think, with one of our first really big projects, as our client was, before they had been purchased by Thermo Fisher, they were merging with another company. Life Technologies and Applied Biosystems were merging. And there was a headquarters facility that was being closed down. And they were budgeted, I think, around like $5 or $7 million to close this facility down. And we ended up bringing them back $3 million, and it blew everyone's mind because they were like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. You're saying we didn't just not spend that money, but we made money? And that got the attention of the high ups, the C-level guys, to find out what happened. How did this cost turn into a net benefit? And that's when we got kind of discovered within our client. And then when they got purchased by Thermo Fisher, we were, mentioned during the M&A and all that stuff that this is one of the tools that they use. And so Thermo Fisher adopted us as well. And by word of mouth, we keep on spreading to large clients because we specialize in a certain niche in the industry, focusing on a certain type of equipment, laboratory research equipment, pharmaceutical equipment. It allows us to make a really serious impact with some of the biggest players in the industry. So I think that's how we were fortunate enough to grow this.
And your primary growth right now is through networking with these individuals, or you go to trade shows. How do you get noticed in the industry right now? Or you're at a point where word of mouth is enough for you guys?
Well, we network within this individuals. So yeah, exactly. We don't have to go to trade shows. We don't have to advertise. Luckily, we're able to just know who we know by solving problems for our client, and then they tell internally the next division president, "Hey, this is what we did," and we ended up getting a lot of extra budget for our cost center. Oh, okay, great. I'll give them a call too. But of course, we're also fully integrated with, we grabbed onto technology and integrated ourselves by, really building a platform that everyone in the company could jump into and make it really easy for all of the users. And we have, 250,000 users that have instant access to shop all the existing stuff that the company already owns. And when they're looking to save money on their budget, especially towards the end of the year, we always see a rush to get a bunch of equipment because most cost centers are looking at very tight budgets and they don't have the money to make ends meet anymore. And so they end up having to really reuse and get equipment back out. And so there's kind of an ebb and flow to it. And then we see a lot of pickups later at the beginning of the year where they want to go buy new equipment and they're getting rid of old stuff. So we're just kind of there solving those problems, making it really readily available, the service. And that's how it spreads just by being useful.
Excellent. Now, from where you started to where you are right now, I have a bunch of questions, but number one is, what were the most important challenges that you faced throughout this growth?
I think a lot of the challenges were like typical business brick and mortar stuff. Those aside, which I don't think any of the guys that be watching this will have to worry about, right? Having insurances and large buildings and leases and employees and all that stuff. But aside from that, the building of the platform, I went through hundreds of thousands of dollars, in-house and trying to get consultants, marketing and everything else in between. Building out the platform, I went through so many iterations, and finally we're on open source PHP or Python base. And it really works finally. We can actually scale. We have developers that are all on the same page. I had to bring everything in-house and organically fund all of this. So I think those were the biggest challenges, was organically funding the growth of our software and building it from the ground up was the most difficult challenge. And then because you had to spend your money wisely. I was a little frivolous. Sometimes we'd have a really good month or a good year, and I would call a consultant and think they could solve our problems, and they really couldn't. It has to be right there day to day with the team. And I think I wasted a lot of money on marketing professionals and other guys that were going to help me put things together, and they just couldn't. There's too many moving pieces, and really you have to do it yourself. You have to do the testing yourself. You have to do all that stuff. We're releasing a new version of our platform, and this is going to be, if you really counted all the versions, I think it's like ERP number 8, but we just call it version 3 right now. And I got hours of test in there with the rest of my team. We're all testing every little corner and piece of it, so the client is going to have that user experience that we want them to have from day one. The new
So
release.
what kind of CEO are you, Justin? Are you someone who is involved in every detail in the company? Are you someone who's trying to delegate a lot? What is your motto?
I'm a delegator now. I got the delegation position. After 15 years of doing this, I was packing stuff and shipping things with the team, go in there and fix equipment for a good decade or so. But then when I moved to the Netherlands to open up our European branch, I had lost a lot of connection with my team in the States. And then, of course, Office 365 evolved so well. And then COVID happened. And so we all just had to figure out a way to get officially on the cloud. And we did, and we navigated that way. So now that that we're all so remote and everything's just readily available, I'm able to run the whole company from my desk. And it's not just me, of course. I have a large team. That's how I'm able to do all these the delegations. I have.
How many employees do you have at REUZEit?
Nationally, I think we're about at 42, I think, right now.
Okay.
We kind of fluctuate up and down depending on projects and what's going on. But that's from warehouse people all the way up to my executive team.
Right. So it's not a huge team for the size of revenue that you're bringing in. That means that you have highly effective teams instead of having a huge.
Yeah, it includes IT developers, and all that stuff. Typically, people who sell laboratory equipment, my competitors who sell laboratory equipment, they don't offer the other half of our business, which is that beautiful platform that's integrated with the companies and we're doing pickup and reuse. They just go in and, they say, hey, we're going to give you 10 cents on the dollar for all your crap. Thank you very much and goodbye. But we have a long-term relationship with our clients, and it's because of our technology. And so I have to carry the weight of a very expensive IT department, but they're worth every penny,
Every
of
dollar.
course. And we do have to do a lot of investment in that category. So having full-time developers the past 5 years or so, and those kinds of things is a little out of the ordinary for a company my size. But yeah, I'd like to say that we do run a pretty tight ship. We've
Yeah, and I
gotten
think it's part because you're transitioning from a complete brick and mortar to a SaaS, a digital platform, and you need to work throughout this revamp. But I think that your business model is like when they asked Jeff Bezos a long time ago, if he was building an internet company. I said, it's not that I'm building or not. I don't care about building an internet company. I'm building a company, and if I need to use warehouses, I'll use warehouses, and if I need to use a server, I'll use a server. So what I'm creating here is a solution. It's just it's not that you're completely focused on creating something digital or SaaS or this or that. It's part of the solution to the
It's
client's
an
needs.
ecosystem. It's a whole ecosystem, and there's lots of participation. From specialists that fix and refurbish equipment to other guys who do pickups locally in the Northeast. They're all on the platform. They're all having revenue opportunities. This way, I don't have to actually charge anybody to use the software. They're just generating revenue by using the software, and I take a piece. It makes it much easier to increase prices and margins and increase all of our revenue because I don't have to have a BD team out there to convince people to pay for some memberships or subscriptions. I get them to say, look, the more money, the more equipment that you put into the platform, the more money you're going to generate. And so they're self-motivated to develop my business for me by putting
Right.
more equipment into our platform. And by doing that, my partners are also seeing that they can get more revenue opportunities instead of going out and buying a bunch of stuff for pennies on the dollar, which still has risk to it. They have to buy things, and if it doesn't sell, they lost that money. Now they getting tons of equipment landing on their dock every day that they don't have to pay for. They just have to sell it, and they get a piece of
Absolutely.
it. So everyone's seeing a new way of doing business, and in my industry, and I think we're going to be bringing that into more industries. It's going to be changing the way that we've all done things before. The buy low, sell high is slowly going to go away, and I think it's one of the stages that we have to take in order to get to the stage of, not necessarily thinking about everything as ownership, but more as just usage. And so you have something for a while, but you need to also give it back and let someone else use it, and then you're going to use another one, and it gets us all kind of used to this concept. Stop wasting money in the transactions and start keeping the money in the system. And really where the money's for is to pay for those technicians that are keeping it running and the storage facilities that are holding that equipment, instead of just going into the sales guys' pockets every time you switch hands and the middleman gets a big chunk. Now we're able to really apply that and give it back to the system that's making all of this work. I think
Right.
that's yeah.
So, Justin, one of my favorite books is this one. It's called The SaaS Playbook, right? I love it. It's by Rob Whaling. And it's, one of the things that it says somewhere in the book, but it says that one of the most complex things to start is an ecosystem like you're doing, where there's supply and demand, right? Like Uber or because you need to build both markets at the same time, buyers and sellers. So what the book says is that his recommendation every time someone's starting to start a company like that is like, don't, because it's incredibly complex. You're building two markets at the same time, buyers and sellers. So you did it. You did it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
part
I
of
did it.
what you did it. What would be the top one or two things that someone who wants to start a platform that is going to combine buyers and sellers should do in order to be more effective?
I think what worked for us was being that partner for the first 10 years. Was we were half the market, and then we only had to focus on our clients. And we're the ones doing all the pickups and all the storage and stuff. So we had that in-house. We developed that flow, that process. And then so when we brought in our first partner on the East Coast, we knew how to explain it to him. Here's what to expect. And that made it easy to bring in the next partner in the UK. And then we have other partners that are coming online. First, we had to be the actual solution in at least one portion of that user profile or that platform profile. We had to be that. And then we could actually replicate ourselves. So maybe that's one way to approach it. Like if you're the Uber driver, maybe you start out with the car, or
Mhm.
several of your friends have cars and you're doing this first yourselves.
Right.
Before you start trying to get other people to join in, you prove it that it works, and that's really
Absolutely.
what we did. It became
Which is what
half of the,
Airbnb did.
is that what they did? I didn't know.
That's what they did. The reason it's called Airbnb is because they would used to rent rooms in their own house with air mattresses. So that's why they called it Airbnb. They used to do that, and then they started bringing more people into the platform.
So they had their own like little network of people of their friends doing this first,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
then they,
they started with a bed and breakfast. They put their bed and breakfast online with air mattresses. Then they started joining, bringing in more and more people.
yeah, yeah,
Which is very, very interesting because it makes sense. I mean, if you focus on building two markets, it's going to be incredibly complex. If you're doing
yeah.
half of the job and you're the client yourself for half of the market, then you only have to focus on developing the other part.
It's the features too, like all the development of stuff that matters to my team. I wouldn't be able to theoretically imagine what a laboratory equipment reseller would need. But now that I've been one for 10 years first, I know what we need to do refurbishments and what kind of tools we need to add to the software to push this stuff through and sell it, where I wouldn't be able to do that unless I had experience. And so when I go to my existing competitors and I'm trying to convince them to come into my platform, I'm able to really offer them tools that I already know the challenges they're already dealing with. I know what they're dealing with. I know how to solve their problems before I even walk in the door. Just because
Absolutely.
having done it myself for a long time, and we built the technology, our own software to solve our own problems that I know are applicable to the rest of my competition. So I think
Right.
that's really helpful, because otherwise you're just building features that you don't even sure anyone wants.
I was gonna ask exactly that question. You're reading my mind. So one of the main challenges for people who are dealing with platforms is that you get a ton of requests. Everybody wants everything done in the platform. They maybe want to interface your platform with their own ERPs, maybe with their Fitbit or
Yeah.
whatever. Crazy, 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 crazy. How do you prioritize, and how do you decide what functionalities you're going to put in the system, what things are critical, what things more importantly, how do you decide what not to do?
Right. Well, what not to do is based on how much money we have at any given moment, of course. But I would do everything if I could. But we're building this in real time with our clients side by side. So we have weekly meetings with them, and they're talking about, I wish we had a report that did this, or I wish we had the ability to put things into a holding area first before we actually. My sales guys would say this, a holding area before we created a quote. Whatever the case might be, we're doing it all in real time. So it makes it much easier to actually build alongside of a client with demands or alongside of your team that's dealing with daily problems. So we use Scrum, and we have a ticket system and everything else, and there's constantly new features coming up, and we're doing as much as we can. And we try to prioritize, financial stuff or sales related stuff or whatever the case is. But it's because we're dealing in a real time, in a real world environment. It's the best you can get for development, and we just don't have to sit in the theory of things for very long. But needless to say, there are some features that I get an idea for, or my brother does. And then we try to feed into the IT department, and they're like, "Yeah, that sounds great," and it doesn't get done because it's just, we're a little bit too far, ahead of some of the things we want to pull off. And so it does happen from time to time that, I'm just thinking way too far down the road, and I have to kind of pull it back to something that's very relevant for today. But yeah, I think that's what keeps us in check is the
The
challenges of the
money.
day. Money and the challenges of today, the priorities of the problems right in front of us usually get taken care of first. And then the cool stuff that we want to build, that kind of goes on the back burner until, we see that opportunity and the timing. And it always ends up working out right, actually,
Right.
when you
Right.
have the forward thinking kind of mixed with the real world.
Beautiful. Justin, let's switch places for a second. Okay. And imagine that you're your own interviewer right now. What is one question that you would ask yourself that you wish people asked you sometimes and they never do? What would be one insightful question that you would ask yourself?
Hmm. Oh, I think a lot of people are always thinking that you have a multi-million dollar company, you must be a millionaire. And I think a lot of people need to realize that you're the last person in line to get paid. Even when you're making millions of dollars at the company, if it's losing money, you're the first person to feel that loss and you're the last person to feel the profit. And so I think a lot of people have this attitude that they're going to just get rich quick, start something up. And it takes a lot longer to exit than I thought. And we've been on this for a while. We've had a great pitch deck. We've had everything together, but there's always just one more complication or thing that makes it like, oh, it's not quite the right investment opportunity yet because it's still connected to this or whatever the case is. So I think that's one of the questions I would have liked to know that yeah, it's going to be a lot more financially difficult to keep it going, with just trying to grow organically. But that's different than a lot of people. A lot of these companies out there, they're going to get funded and they'll scale, and that's just not the experience that I had. We had
Right.
to we had to bootstrap, we had to make our own revenue, and we had to do everything on our own. And it just took a lot longer than I expected. We're at the point now though that we're getting a lot of attention from VCs and PE guys and all that stuff, and it's just a matter of time now that we're going to get some seed. Really, we're
Offers.
looking for seed funding. It's kind of weird. I'm a 15-year-old company, but we're also brand new at the same time with the spin out. So as a SaaS model, we're a seed company, and here we are. Even though we've got huge clients already, and we've got kind of this proven system, we're still looking for that bit of money to really bring that platform together, so that we can onboard, thousands of new partners and handle hundreds of thousands of items per month instead of just 1,000. So we're already at our limits with how we can handle things, and to get to that next level, we're going to need investors too.
Right.
And it takes
Because
so
you're
much
huge
long.
for a small company, but you're small for a unicorn, right?
Yeah, all these things. I think unicorns are never what you expect. I think that's probably the truth. But I'm exactly that. I'm not what you expect. This company, when you open up the hood and you look at it, you're like, what the heck did they build here? How do they get all this stuff going? And people look right at a unicorn and they can't see it. And
Right.
that's what I think I am really. I think we're sitting there with the opportunity of right place, right time, right momentum. And even then, it doesn't always look like you think it looks to the investors. It
Absolutely.
might be that everyone's really hot on video AI right now, and they're looking at all those apps, and they just not interested. It's not sexy enough, or whatever the case might be. So that it's the amount of time that it takes and the amount of money that you're going to have to spend essentially to get the more money. It's
See, I think we're experiencing another bubble. That's my. I mean, AI definitely is a game changer, like the internet was at that point in time, right? When it
yeah,
started, and when the internet was getting started, everybody was trying to build something for the internet so that they were able to sell it to the VCs for millions and millions of dollars.
yeah,
I think with AI, with the top part of AI, it's kind of the same. Like everybody's just trying to use the language models and so on and so forth to build something and sell it out there. But in the long term, it is the real companies that are focusing on the real value, long term value, that are going to really thrive and survive. I mean, the internet bubble happened, and real companies like Amazon not just stood there, they actually skyrocketed. It's a matter of just keep adding value, having a real business, a real profitable business, instead of just speculating, to sell hot air or
no, it's the
nice.
oldest adage. It's the oldest adage out there. It's like you just apply technology to an existing framework, and it's going to be
Correct.
guaranteed like a profitable endeavor. So anytime that you already have something working great, and then you increase the efficiency of it with technology, it's a no-brainer. And that's what we've had. We
Absolutely.
had 15 years to prove what works. We have never lost a client. We've gotten every client we've gone after, and then we just land and expand and get to more sites. And now we got AI came into the whole thing, and it's going to change everything, and no one even knows how to build what we've built because we have such a established ecosystem, such an established platform. You couldn't just come up with this idea and be like, oh, I'll throw AI on it. It's really about where the AI goes, identifying reuse opportunities or helping us, keep an active market rate for our market price on all the equipment depending on its condition. And that
Correct.
condition is reported by all the various service people who are just now they're just talking. I have my service technicians are just talking while they're fixing stuff, and it's capturing all the information and putting together, a new user manual, and it's teaching the next technician how to fix that machine. So even though it's the first time we've seen the machine, the AI is suggesting, oh, it has common breakpoints here, here, and here. Make sure to check this and that. And the technician is doing those things, adding more to it. So the next technician is also able to pick up this machine no one's seen. It's 20 years old, whatever the case is. The user manuals are missing. And we have basically assembled a new user manual for the thing, at least from a technical standpoint, for a technician to repair an item, recalibrate it, whatever needs to happen. And all these things were impossible before. Of course, I had the ideas early on. And like I was always telling my technicians, make sure you note that in the notes. like someone's going to go reading through the notes to find this information, you know. But now,
But now, if you feed that into another machine learning
yeah,
platforms, you can sell even that information to laboratories who need to repair their own equipment, and you have another database over there, the endless business opportunities.
yeah, the data sets we're building alone might be worth more than the whole company in years to come. Just because, we're adding all this extra proprietary data that's just not publicly available to this old equipment, to all the used equipment out there. There's LLMs are great at valuating and helping sell and telling people how to use new equipment that's currently on the market that's all over the internet. But as for that stuff that's 20 years old or 10 years old, it fell off the websites, it's no longer around. There's just LLMs, they can't get it. They won't get
Yeah,
accurate help. So,
right.
this data set is at scale. I mean, right now we only have about $50 million a year worth of equipment coming in. So I have about 15 or 20,000 items that we've managed that we have data for. But, at scale, we start getting 100,000 items a month and we start going into multiple industries. This data set's going to be worth an absolute fortune. And
Right.
I think a lot of people aren't realizing that the future is data sets. I mean,
Right.
yes, ecosystems, platforms are important, but the data sets of the people
Data.
talking, the data sets of the people working together on all these and how they work together is really, I think, where people don't see it coming.
And
And
you're
that's,
creating this content. I mean, it's not like you're reusing it or bringing it for someone else. It's like the technician is doing something, is describing the thing, he's creating things that are not yet there
yeah,
on the internet. It's phenomenal. So,
yeah.
Justin, we just want to remind our listeners that this podcast is sponsored by Synthesis, who helps you bring world-class IT developers near shore so you can scale or even start or scale your applications. Justin, before we finish, three quick questions. What is your favorite book? Favorite book you've ever read?
Oh, Platform Revolution. I loved that book. I mean, I loved lots of books, but I'll keep it relevant to this topic at least. And my favorite business book is Platform Revolution. My favorite health book was The Paleo Cardiologist. And my favorite fiction book is the Columbus Day series with Skippy. And I don't know if you ever heard of that one. That's like kind of
Never.
space.
Now we're gonna make a note to read it.
Yeah,
Okay. The
yeah.
Columbus.
Well, Columbus Day was the first book. I think it's called Expeditionary Force. That's my favorite, fiction book. Yeah, there you go. A
Awesome.
series.
What is your most important habit?
I think a little bit of being curious and inquisitive. So I like to dig and keep digging until I become aware as much as I can about almost everything that I come across. So I like to purposefully look for controversial information that goes against my current belief system just to test what I believe is right. And that makes it me either more firm and solid on what I think I know, or it revolutionizes things. And so that's, yeah, one of my best habits, I think, that really helped me see some things, but also got me in trouble a bunch of times too.
That's so interesting because most of us, I think most human beings, we have the tendency of reading information that confirms our point of view, right? Not reading or getting information who goes against what we believe. And what you do is precisely that. So you get opposite point of view so you can make your own mind phenomenal. What is your
Precisely.
favorite piece of software or favorite piece of technology, app or otherwise?
My own platform, I love it.
This is the first. I was hoping someone would say that in this question. This is the first time, okay, that I'm getting that. I've been asking this question, for I don't know, 10, 12 episodes now, and I
Oh,
was
really?
hoping someone would say my own platform is my favorite piece of technology.
It is so sexy. I mean, I just go on, like, it'd be like midnight and I'm about to go to bed and I just open up my platform and just dance around on it and look at it and just like, wow, this thing is so cool. And I love how it just saves time. I remember how long it took me to make a listing. One of my employees now that was making listings after that, but it all just pops up automatically and it gets it right. So sometimes I'm testing the platform, and seeing like how accurate things are. And it's like, wow, that market price is almost spot on. Amazing. And so, yeah, I love it.
Beautiful. And are you using now leveraging AI to create more code faster?
More what faster?
Code. I mean, to
Oh,
release more features
oh,
faster.
I
Are
see.
you using
No,
AI now?
my developers do. Yeah, they use AI. I don't develop. I don't even know how to
No,
do
no,
that.
I know. But
Yeah.
I mean, your hands, right? So
Yeah, they're using AI to help them code faster, of course.
beautiful.
Depends on what they're doing, but Yeah, we're using open source a lot, so we're really mostly configuring the existing stuff out there and plugging it in. Once we get funding, we're going to rebuild the whole thing from scratch, But for right now, open source, heavily configured for our own purpose is the platform that we're using.
Beautiful, beautiful. Justin, it has been an incredible conversation today. I hope that our listeners get to get their own golden nuggets today. For me, curiosity, commitment, resilience, vision, and strategy. I think those are some of the words that I could use to describe you and your venture. Thinking different. I'm still, to me, one of the greatest lessons from talking to you and reading about you is definitely when things get really tough. I mean, don't play it safe. When things get tough, if you double down on yourself, that is the best investment you can do. Whether it's taking a road trip to the side of the world or starting a business, invest in you, and that's eventually going to pay off. Justin, is there any final words that you would like to give our audience before we wrap up this episode?
Yeah, to just echo what you were saying, don't hesitate. As soon as you see an opportunity or a risk or something that's going to be worth taking, do it. Always just do it right as fast as you can. You'll regret waiting. So I always just jump on things and do them now. That's one of my mantras, is just do it now. Why not?
Absolutely. So thank you, Justin. Thank you to our listeners. I'm going to keep inviting you, to all of our listeners, to keep understanding that business is a way in which we can grow as human beings. So start, scale, exit. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.